In my opinion, Shadowrun Returns. This game took me about 12 hours to complete, and this is how things fare up. Firstly, a quick overview, and then we'll dive deeper into this title. Shadowrun Returns is a tactical role-playing game which is very much turn-based in every way. The real shining star is the battle system, completely turn-based and action point driven. This essentially becomes XCOM. Unfortunately, don't expect you to overcome the issues in XCOM's battle system. If you don't like to read, then advise not picking it up because there's a lot. The dialogue trees allow you to actively choose how much of the story you want to read, and everything you need to know, they require you to read. The environments are highly detailed with an art style matching the character models. Some of these maps may as well be corridors, and the game doesn't give you enough feedback as to where the boundaries are. The leveling system essentially has a hand to play in every section of the game, and so it's rather nice to see a fleshed out system in play. It's a very nice system if somewhat non-user friendly to new people in the genre. Other encompasses managing inventory, stash, buying and selling goods and hiring staff on missions, focusing on the available items if found a lack of weapons and spells outside of summoning. Also, the actual items you buy are all generic. The decker programs are well balanced, tending to both buff and boon the player. When it comes to hiring people on missions, everyone but the weapons experts are useless, dying quickly, and even the deckers are vastly underpowered for the price. I only gave it a 62%, but let's see why it's only above average, and if you're wondering about the scoring system, press the annotation. Okay, let's take a look at the battle system. This is the majority of the game and actually takes up about 4 hours 56 minutes, at least it did for me. Obviously these numbers will vary, but that's how long it took me to complete the battling alone. Okay, so this is very much like a XCOM style turn-based system. You have cover and you have one thing to note here. See, there's a bit of rubble here. I can't hide behind that. That does nothing if I stand there. And that there is a problem with a lot of places around here, and this is the reason why I've chosen this in particular map, because columns and posts will do the exact same thing. Now, I mentioned it was like XCOM. Keep in mind, it's not going to solve any of the issues of XCOM's battle system whatsoever. You're still going to end up running out, and people are going to end up shooting you because you couldn't see them. And largely, it's a case of they won't hunt for you unless you walk in range of them, which is a little bit sad to say the least, because I think they could have done much more with that. Okay, I'm going to need to get rid of him immediately. It's not very difficult. This doesn't become a challenge and doesn't become actually plentiful until about the second half of the game. The first half of the game is mainly just walking around and talking, which is one reason why I say if you don't like to read, don't play this game, because you're going to have a bad time. Now, this is only one half of the battle system. I'll take a look at the matrix in a little bit, but sticking on this here, you basically have action points. Action points just been up here. I think they call action points in this game, and you essentially just move and walk within those points, and occasionally a little bit of text comes up, and I'm going to block that out because it might be a slight spoiler if anyone just wanting to see the battle system. The actions and shooting actually do take up different amounts of action points as well. So if I show you over here, if I was to shoot, let's get to somebody first. Where is everybody? If I show you on this long range weapon here, I can either do a burst fire for 2 action points, do an aimed shot which will have a cooldown of 3 turns, or just normally just shoot him. I'm going to do an aimed shot because I'm pretty sure he's going to go up and try to batter me, because the patients in this original area just come up and hit you with melee. That's all they really do. Okay, so he's going to go and do them. So they do their moves. I don't think they have as many action points, and eventually you do get 3 action points as well as a note. So here I can do, there's another part of this game as well with the ammo as well. So for example, if I was to choose burst fire, you'll see down here this yellow bit. I would use up that much of my ammo, and that'll take up a lot more of my ammo. So what I'm going to do, I think I could probably take this one out myself. I'm going to choose burst fire on him. Ooh, I did not do very well at all. Not very good. Okay, let's do a headshot on him. Oh no, a normal shot rather. Normal shot on him, that should be enough to get rid of them. That's perfectly fine. So you've essentially seen most of the battle system. The only other thing are magical spells, but exactly the same as normal stuff, normal weapons, other than the fact that you learn them and you buy them. To be quite honest with you, I found the magic to be fairly limiting in your choice. but it is nice to have it in there at the end of the day. The only other thing is, well, obviously with the ammo, by the way, you can reload using that there, and it generally takes up 1 turn. You have multiple weapons. I think you can only have as much as 6, because that's the amount in your inventory, but you generally don't want to do that because you want to store things like medipacks and things on you as well, not just spend all your money on the weapons. Okay, so there's some guy in here. Let's get in there quickly. Now, you see here, this here is part of the obfuscated sort of area. I can't move there. And I can't really take cover behind this post here. Oh, I can actually. Usually you can't take cover behind the posts. There is another section not too far away from here, which I might show in a second, which does not allow you to hide behind the post. And that patient has a gun. Let's take out him first, shall we? Let's do a bolt on him. So you can see the aesthetic of the magic is actually pretty nice, actually. The aesthetic overall was pretty nice. And this is an inside area. I'll show you a better looking area when we talk about exploring, but all in all, even the inside areas are pretty nice. Ooh, who's gonna get? No one. I'm actually out of ammo here. It's gonna reload for 1. There are some weapons which appear to reload for nothing if you don't use up all the ammo, but I haven't really found any sort of feedback to tell me which ones are which. Okay, so now I think we're going to drop into the Matrix, which will be a separate part. So let's show you that now. Okay, so this is where we're going to go into the Matrix. I'll choose some of my stuff. Now, I don't think I've got enough to be able to just go, yeah, I've only got enough to fill it anyway. So I'm taking the Blaster, Killer, Medic, and Suppression. I don't think I've ever used Suppression, and I don't quite know why, but I generally take it anyway. And I have an Attacker ESP, which is the other teammate you can summon. Let's go straight into it, and this will take up 1 turn, but because these are people playing in this turn-based thing, everything's fine. So, this is the Matrix. Now, it looks very basic and fairly bare. However, in actuality, it's just like a normal world without the walls, pretty much. So I have to control this guy and myself, Johnny Clean, who's the janitor, around this area. And I'm going to have to go to these data stores, because basically we're trying to data mine for something. Let's go put some cover behind there. Past this chapter, I haven't really seen that many unique enemies that I would say, oh no, I don't know what this thing's doing, or I haven't had to apply a different strategy other than shoot it, essentially. I'm going to aim at the main guy, I think. Ah, that's what he's called there. So let's aim at the main guy. I did 75 damage. Now I think it's about time I bring up my ESP. So I'm just going to bring it out because I'm not going to show that much of this Matrix part. So let's summon my ESP. They all pretty much look like this, by the way. Well, at least the 2 that I've used. And they will have their own set of action points and their own set of abilities. You don't customize these abilities though, unfortunately. So he just has bomb. Really? Okay, so it just has the bomb, which is an area matrix that deals basically just like a normal, in the real world with weapons sort of bomb. Now he can't move now, which is fairly useful. Hiring a decker from the hired goons or Shadowrunners, whatever they're called, menu is pretty much useless. They're all really squishy. So far I've hired 2, and they've all been rubbish when they've got onto the Matrix. The only situation that I would say hire one would be if you were going to roll something that wasn't a decker. If you're going to roll something that's not a decker, there are entire sections which sort of require you to do it. Obviously this one here, I've got a guy with me, but there are entire sections without anyone else that will be required. Let's put a bomb there. There's no actual turn requirement there, so I'm fine. Okay. I think we're going to get into this one quite easily. One thing to note, by the way, as well, obviously, you can overwatch in this world as well. You can overwatch in practically every single turn-based thing I've seen so far. Let's aim at the guy that's about to attack no, actually, take that instead. Now, there is one bad thing with the fixed camera. And that there is that clicking on him now is going to be fairly difficult. So when I get round to doing that, I'll show you, move over here a bit, so I can get a look in. Because here and now, See there, if I click just there, just 2 pixels above, I end up walking. And that happens fairly often. You've got to be very, very careful when you actually click, unfortunately, which is why I think maybe it might have value from having an option where you can change the control to, because at the moment, if I double click here, it will just go there. But if I left click on him, it will tell me it's a white IC. Or it will just make him shoot. One or the other. I think it could value from a separate button being set in the controls, even if it wasn't default. You do spend a lot of your time doing this, so it's good that the game actually is fairly challenging, but again, only plentiful and challenging in the second half. That's the reason why I gave it a 7 out of 10. So, next let's look at story, I think. Okay, so the next section is actually going to contain some minor spoilers. It's based on storyline. So I'm going to put this table here so you can turn annotations and skip ahead to exploring, or leveling up, or rewatch battling if you're a bit insane. And I'm then going to say nothing so you can pause. Okay, that's your warning now, so I assume you're happy with some minor spoilers. I'm going to talk about the story. So, the story is the main element you play for throughout Shadowrun, and actually is set a little bit in the future to modern day, but not so much so that you can get things like teleporting and laser guns, and it's not going to be that kind of sci-fi, but you do get things like cyberware, which essentially turns you into some sort of android type creature with different computer robotics doing your work for you. It's not set in the real world because it has things like magic and a different history. This is the reason why you're playing the entire game, because although it only takes up a third of the time, the first half of the game is mainly story and exploration. You're not going to find a lot of challenge in the battle system. You're not going to find a lot of good options and choices and things to keep you going to the second half, which is, I suppose, if you don't like to read, it's a bad part of the game, because you're not going to get hooked on the battle system very early. One thing about the story system is because it's all based around text, there are dialogue trees that allow you to actively choose how much of the story you want to read, and this time, by the way, is based on me reading everything that was presented to me and actively going out and finding some things to read. For example, whenever anyone has a big speech bubble above their head, I've gone and spoken to them, so if you were to skip everything, this is probably going to be a lot less time for you. Now, although you can skip any part of the story, I wouldn't advise you doing that, because most parts are actually required for you to get anything, and the ending is going to be, it's going to fly straight over your head unless you actually read things. And also, in some parts of the dialogue, they require you to have a certain level in order to be able to progress and get the next part of the dialogue. One thing out there, though, is it only gives you a bit more text. All it really mainly provides you is an extra paragraph of text. But like most of the game, the storyline is above average and enjoyable, and I didn't find any point that it was too much for me to handle. I didn't feel at any point I didn't feel like at any point I didn't know what was going on, and even when they started using terminology that I didn't learn, I stored it away like it would do in most sci-fi things or some sort of epic novel, and then found out what that word means later on. So all in all, I'd say the story is an okay bun around the battle system sandwich, although it could have been a lot better. On the bright side though, there are custom campaigns you can make, so people will make better stories than the original campaign fairly easily, I think. So, this is me on story, so next let's look at exploration. Under exploration comes how well the levels are actually designed, whether they look any good, and whether there's actually a reason to go and find things within the level, and mainly this year is side quests. It's pretty much the only way you're going to find any hidden items or any side quests. Fortunately, there are quite a few side quests. Unfortunately, these are essentially just walk into a room and try to find anything to click on, which isn't exactly the most innovative and enjoyable thing to do, especially considering the reward for it generally is not a lot of money or not a lot of reward or items. I'd have preferred something more like a nice weapon or something, rather than the opportunity to progress a story a couple paragraphs or to get a small amount of cash out of it. The actual levels themselves are pretty much obfuscated corridors as well, which is because generally you're inside an office or a building or in a slum streets. The actual streets themselves look much bigger than what they actually are as well, because it doesn't really tell you where the boundaries are. So you might be clicking around somewhere and realising, hang on a second, this building's actually in my way. It's an illusion to try to make the game world feel bigger than what it actually is, which, to be quite honest with you, considering the engine, they could have made it bigger than what it currently was. Even on the larger maps, it is pretty much just a this direction please, you might want to do something on the side. The last things I will say on this is that the outside aesthetic is very nice, and the fact that a few of the items actually require you to use your leveling points is definitely a nice bonus to the leveling system itself. It definitely adds something. However, what it does add is just another paragraph of text. The exploration is serviceable, and side quests are just something to do before you leave an area. Now, leveling doesn't really require the actual time on there. That time there is just the time it took to go through all these menus and also level up later on in the game. So this here now is customizing the character, which actually fell under other but does affect leveling. So you choose gender, which doesn't mean anything. Race does mean a few things. For example, the elves are significantly more intelligent, I think. I don't know, more charismatic and willpower, so on and so forth. These are the stats that are given to you when you first start. And then after that there is the actual classes down here. I was a decker for this playthrough, however that doesn't necessarily have to be the case, which just give means to actually replayability. So we have physical, rigger, shaman, mage, decker, and street samurai. Street samurai I think is pretty much close combat and throwing weapons and things. Mage is spells. Decker is mainly concentrated around the matrix and intelligence. Shaman is very much like the mage in a way, but also can summon things into the world. A rigger puts down weapons and then uses them to shoot. Physical adept is literally just close combat. So let's get a female mage on the go. Alright, okay, firstly, what happens when you first start out is this gets locked, your character customization does, and you can choose a different image, and this 3D model down here will then change appropriately. But what you can do is unlock it, and then choose whatever hairstyle and look you actually want. I don't know what that there is. That's a black hair, and so on and so forth. So the actual image won't match it, because, let's face it, they'd have to split off everything and make everything work, which would be a bit of a pain. Let's continue on to stats to see the real part of leveling in this. I said leveling happened by leveling up the things below based on what's above. Basically, you see over here, body is on its own here, it's not a very good example, but you see quickness right here. Now, any of these, see this line right here, any of these cannot level above level 3, and stuff below this can't level above this ranged combat, I'm pretty sure. Yes, and dodge can't level above 3 essentially. So the the branch above you has to be more than the branches inside. Obviously, this only applies to the higher branch using this little thing over here. Essentially, just follow the lines. And there is a hell of a lot of stuff here. So there's strength, quickness, intelligence is what I used, and willpower, charisma, and that's it I think. And then body is just normal. Now what you'll end up putting your points in, or at least where I put your points in, was weapons and decking. I reckon the best way of doing this is to put karma into the way of fighting and whatever skill you have, unless I suppose you're a rigger, in which case it's pretty much open to customization. Now let's put a point into a pistol, and you'll see I won't be able to put a point into a second pistol. Does it allow me to do that because ranged combat is higher up in the branch. I put it into 2, now I can get any of these. I think I rolled a mage, didn't I? So the spell casting and cheek casting, which is the main component to calculate how much you're going to hit with this ability. So I still have 2 left, so I'm going to put 1 to that there. So leveling has a hand to play in all sections of the game. It's nice to have a really good system, as you saw then. There was a lot of points to put things in. It's vitally important though to choose your path from the start, because you're going to get a limited amount of points. These are used in speech and exploration objects, but not very much, and when these do happen in exploration objects and speech, you generally just get an extra paragraph of text. Now on top of this system is also etiquette, which essentially just gives you the choice of choosing a way to act amongst other people. So you can either be a Shadowrunner, which deals with the Shadowrunners better, culprit deals with culprit employees, security gang, streak, academic and socialite, and these here also affect your interaction through speech, and I think just through speech, and I think it's via exploration objects. Now the leveling system is very good, but it's a little bit non-user friendly, so I think it may end up scaring people off. People might just randomly put things in weapons or things they don't really need to, and then they'll end up wasting the time and dying very easily. It's a very good system, but I would have preferred these to have more significant difference to the storyline, other than just a few paragraphs of text here and there. Now, other encompasses managing your inventory, stash, buying and selling goods, and hiring staff on missions. Now, I've found a lack of weapons outside of summoning, and they're all pretty much generic, which is both good and bad. Good because then you know what weapons are. You know this is an MK, you know this is SMG, etc, etc. However, it's bad because more often than not, you're going to run around with the best weapons when you can buy, because there isn't a lot actually to buy. And I feel like there are enough add-ons and variations of weapons that they could have add a lot more in there on the weapons point of view. However, on the deck of programs, I think they've got quite a lot there to actually work with. They've got a lot of upgrades, a lot of different levels, a lot of different standards, and the ESPs, the little guys you fight around with, are definitely very varied and fleshed out and very tactical, because you can only use them once and you can only take so many in a mission at one time. Now, when it comes to hiring a team, I've already sort of discussed this, but I think personally everyone other than the weapons experts are pretty much useless. The deckers are pretty much useless. I've used two of them, and they were both squishy in the real world and squishy inside the Matrix. So because I am a decker, I did not bother to use them. Unless you are one, I wouldn't recommend even bothering with the second one whatsoever. It's pretty much useless to you. The weapons experts I did go with were two very hunky guys which seemed to be really good at getting the job done. However, they were very expensive. One sort of bad thing if you like a challenge with a hiring team though is that generally you'll get given a lump sum of cash to go buy your guys with, and then you look around. Now the weapons experts are the only worthwhile guys to get, so after about the fourth time this happened, I just immediately went straight to the weapons experts, got the guys that I knew can do a job, and then left. So there wasn't even a challenge there, which, considering the battle system does have a challenge there, that system did not. There is a good selection, however everyone but the weapons experts need to be slightly boosted up a little bit, I feel. What's on there is nice, however there could be a little more variety, and the fact that people apparently cannot add weapons in the editor is a little bit worrying, because the editor is practically one of the main reasons why I would suggest, or ever suggest, buying this game. All things considered, this is how things measure up. If you want to know how the overall score is calculated, then please click the annotation. Otherwise, I'll proceed with one final statement. Also, before you comment or ask a question, take a look at the first little bit in the description, and it should answer most questions. In my opinion, Shadowrun Returns is a promising, worthwhile experience, provided you like to read and love turn-based battle systems. I've been the Lord Bones. Please rate, comment and subscribe, and don't be afraid of making any suggestions. This show is a constantly evolving format, and I would like to hear any constructive criticism.